This episode for late February of 2025 is really different. I'm talking to 6 folks at once. 3 of them are returning guests. I've interviewed them before. Cynthia Robinson Young, Rachel Landrum Crumble, and Devereaux Shivington Stebbins. Since usually I only talk to one person and maybe 2, I hope I can keep it all straight. I'm sure they'll help me. Also, we are going to move from being creative as an alone process as our theme to a process where we talk about how we need others for it. So in today's episode, I will speak with some of the members of the Northwest Georgia Writers Group, which meets in Fort Oglethorpe, Georgia, 2 times a month and has done so since 2011. We are an affiliate of the Chattanooga Writers Group, or Guild. We will talk about how a writers group works and how others can support our creative processes. These are very smart and talented people, so I think you'll want to listen. I want to start our conversation with each person who's here today, introducing themselves as if they were on an elevator with an editor from HarperCollins. Now, this is a kind of an imaginary thing. Maybe not. Maybe they've gone to a conference and there is an editor or a connection with a good company. And, elevator speech, elevator pitch kind of thing. And they have 30 seconds, a minute or so to introduce themselves and what they're working on, their latest writing project or publication or similar kind of thing. So there are 6 people here today. So I'm going to start with Devereaux.
All right. Good morning, Barbara. Thank you for having me back on your podcast. I think I speak for everyone in our group, Northwest Georgia Writers Group, in saying that we're happy to be with you here this morning, and we look forward to our coming discussion. I've been a member of this group since about 2015. I've written 2 historical fiction novels since then, A Fall from Snowbird Mountain and The Unbroken Circle. I published Fall from Snowbird Mountain in January 2023, so just about 2 years ago. And I finished The Unbroken Circle late last year. It's in the editing process now and scheduled to be published later this year. I just started my 3rd book. It doesn't have a title yet. I'm really very much in the beginning, so I can't really tell you much about that except it's supposed to be a mystery. So I set my stories in the Southeast, where I grew up and where I spent most of my life. My goal in my writing is to entertain my readers by taking them to another place in time with characters they can relate to. What I believe is that people have changed little throughout history. And their desires, their needs, the things that drive them were the same then as they are now. So with the research I do, going back into the past and bringing it to the writer, I can make it all work. I often put in a little bit about comparing the past with the present because I see history repeating itself now. And so I can't resist doing some of that too. It just seems natural. If I'm going to talk about history in the past, I'm also talking about the present.
Okay, thank you. And I want everybody who's listening to get the names of these books so that you can go buy them. This is a little bit of what we're doing here in some cases. Okay, Phoebe.
Hey, my name is Bibi Tomlin Lefkoff, and I consider myself a Southern writer. I grew up in the South, and so everything that I write is kind of filtered through that lens. I've been in the group for 2 to 3 years on and off. And I'm working on my 3rd book titled Dupree's Angel. And it's the coming of age story of a young American who has volunteered for the RAF at the beginning of World War II before the Americans become involved. And he crashes his Spitfire in northern France and is aided across France by a young boy named Augie.
Okay. And Bibi, you have mentioned that you and if I'm wrong, please correct me, that you have written romance novels before?
I have. I have 2 romance novels published by Ecstasy Books, and An Apple a Day and Hot for Teacher.
Okay. Okay. Did you write those under Rebecca Lefkoff?
No, those are under a pseudonym, Candace Lynn.
Candace Lynn.
Lynn, Kandeis. I was feeling fancy and spelled it weird. So
okay. So, all right. Thank you. And I think one thing we're going to come up mention a little bit here a little later. It is we might talk about COVID when that happened as well with our group. Okay. Next person, Teresa Reimer.
Good morning. I'm Teresa Reimer. I am writing a historical novel titled Under the Porch. It is based on the lives of my grandparents, Bill and Flora Boyd. It spans the years of 1916 to 1919 and is set in Northeast Arkansas. It covers many historical events through that time period, which were significant to this family, such as World War I, the Great Depression, and World War II, while also touching on issues such as PTSD and women's issues.
Okay. And next is Rachel Landrum Crumble.
Hi, I'm Rachel Landrum Crumble. I have a book of poetry out, which is Sister Sorrow, and another one coming out soon. But I am currently working on this novel, and my pitch is it's the first day of summer vacation in suburban Philadelphia in the 70s. 17-year-old Maggie comes to after being knocked unconscious. In shock, she steps out of her body to search for survivors, only to discover that everyone in her household is dead. This is not a crime novel. Maggie literally walks out of the house of trauma to bang on a neighbor's door for help and into the rest of her life.
Okay, you have done what I've heard someone say, start with the snake. And by that, they just meant start with something really, really riveting on the first page. So, yes, very, very interesting work. I'm getting very involved in it, as I am with everybody's. Okay, and then Tucker Pennington.
Hi, I'm Tucker Pennington. I'm a fledgling writer. I have a first rough draft finished of a novel. It runs out at about 330 pages at this point. I enjoy writing about small characters in small places. The novel is set in a North Georgia town and revolves around a church secretary and an unexpected sexual encounter, which is what the novel opens with. The rest of the novel follows that character and her arc as she works through all the problems that the dalliance brings into her life. Some good, some bad. In the end, I think things are going to work out for this lady. It is a small southern town in the near past. And I've fallen in love with the characters, and I could not let them go until I got them on paper.
Okay. I like that last sentence. Yes. We do fall in love. They become very, 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 very real. They're in the back seat with us or in the front seat. Okay. And then Cynthia Young.
All right. My name is Cynthia Robinson Young is my author's name. And that's fine. I have a book, a chapbook, poetry chapbook out called Migration. I have another chapbook that's at the publishers right now. I am just finished a novel with the group about, it's a multi-generational story of magic for these African and African American women, and how it's passed down or not. And I've gotten a lot of help from the group for that. And I'm working in the group on a novella based on the children's book, Goodnight Moon. It's not about what's in the book, but it's kind of, the springboard.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. I appreciate everyone introducing themselves that way. And that will give the listeners a sense of the variety of what our folks write about and who they are. And you need to for those who are published, rush to Amazon and get these books, or not necessarily Amazon. I shouldn't say that, but that tends to be the default, I guess. Okay. So each person is sort of signed up for a question, or a couple of people have for each one. So I want to start then, as we get into this question, what drove you or led you to join a writers group such as this one? So Teresa.
Yeah, I do not have a history of writing, but my father encouraged me to write this as a novel for many, many years. And when he passed away, it just kind of overwhelmed me, and the need to do it was great. So I started out working with a lady in North Carolina who has a little writer's coaching business. And I worked with her for about a year just to kind of learn some basics and feel comfortable with someone who is a cheerleader and an encourager. And after that, I needed people that were going through the same thing and that were local. And so I got in touch with the Chattanooga Writers Guild, and they told me about this group, which was the closest to me in town. And that's how I got started.
Okay. And I do want to say that our group is affiliated with the Chattanooga Writers Guild, and we're all members of it. And that's important. I do need to say that. And let me follow up, Teresa. Your father asked you to write this as a novel instead of a memoir?
Yes, he did.
Why do you think that was?
I think because there are some things in the novel that are maybe a little touchy, and he thought maybe it would be a great book, and that I would not use their real names.
Oh, okay. Great. Yes, I understand. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that he loved them. He loved my grandmother. Even it was his mother-in-law. He loved her dearly, and I think that it was his way of telling her story without, and protecting her at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But I had chosen to use their names.
Yeah, your story is very. I don't want to say it's this. It's like other people's because every story is particular, but it resonates with a lot of what people went through in that part of the country at that time. In a way, we all grew up with World War II, but this one is more focused on World War I, which we don't always know as much about. So, okay. Rachel, what led you to our group?
I had just finished trying to launch my first book of poetry, Sister Sorrow. It was during the pandemic. So there were some roadblocks to that. And because I had spent so much time, it covers a large span of time. And I believe in the book. I think it's, I'm proud of the book, but not the launch. And it sapped my creative strength to try to promote it. And I really, like Cynthia remembers, because she was trying to tell me to keep going. I really just kind of almost shut down creatively. And I thought, my gosh, I've got to rediscover my sense of play, my reason why I write in the first place, and just create. And so I thought I would start on a fiction project that I'd actually started a version of that story before, and then my computer crashed and I lost it. And so I never recovered it. And so I joined the group and started writing a novel.
Okay. I have to wonder how much creativity's been lost because of computers crashing. We hear that story so much. I can relate. We're back to the COVID thing. It did affect us so much because we couldn't meet face to face. The group did try to meet electronically through Zoom kind of thing, but just not the same. Okay. And Cynthia, what about you?
I was led to join the group. I had started my novel. I was on probably I had lost count. I think it was the third or fourth revision. And I just felt like it would be really helpful to have a group of people that would walk with me as I revised it yet again. And so I'm friends with Tucker Pennington, and he recommended that I do this process with this writers group. And so I asked to join it, and they let me in, and it's been great.
Okay. All right. So now this next question is a little bit more in the weeds. You all came to the group, but what led you to stay with our group? Because, and I don't say this is anything negative or as a criticism, but some folks they come for a few times, they come for maybe a few months, but then for whatever reason, they just don't come back or find they can't come back. So what has kept you with us, Tucker?
Okay. Well, you may remember when I first came, my first submission had all cannons flying at it because it was the sex scene from the novel. I figured, why not just throw in the deep end? And discovered that a couple of people got triggered by that, and were boy, oh boy, did I get taken to task on moral grounds. And I almost did not come back, and I stopped and I said, wait a minute. I need this writing group. They're serious folks. They're seriously doing the writing. I'll just won't send that kind of stuff out to them. And so I, for the most part, have kept it fairly tame. But I will say that since that time, the group is really, I feel, very accepted by all of you. And I trust you to give me solid feedback that holds my feet to the fire, that doesn't, this sounds wrong because we're all writing fiction, so it's all fiction. But if I stray out of my lane, or I write a female character who is, to quote Rachel, acting like a dude, I get nailed for that. And I have to come back and go, okay, you missed that. Let's try this again. And I so appreciate that, because I want my voices of my characters to reflect who they are as individuals and to act as they should in a given situation, even if that situation is unexpected. And this group allows me that freedom, and I trust them. And I just, it's come to be a bi-monthly lifeline for my writing.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and I, listening to you, I reflected back on how, depending on how long the people have been in the group, some of us longer than others, how I have seen people's writing develop, and it's kind of neat. In different ways. Deborah, why do you stick around?
Well, largely for the same reasons that the others have, because this group really cares about my story. When I started roughly 10 years ago, I knew nothing. I have not studied lit. I didn't study English lit in college. I don't have a history of writing, but it was something I'd always wanted to do. And so with the very first meeting, I knew that I had found a home with a group of people who were serious about writing and who I thought could help to guide me in my craft and help me to hone my craft so I could actually write something real. I had been asked to write a memoir by a friend of mine about her family. And so I was biting off a lot. I had already written one. And in that case, I had the opportunity to interview my protagonist throughout the entire story that she wanted to tell. And that made it a whole lot easier. The first story started in the Civil War and discussed a man's struggle to survive and how he gets into counterfeiting and all of that. And I didn't know how to write that. I couldn't talk to anyone. And the family that living now knew nothing about him or them, and they couldn't tell me anything. So this group helped me figure out what I needed to do. I knew I had to research, but I was writing about everyman kinds of people and everyday struggles and the trials that people go through. And of course, a very emotional time in history. And so they helped to keep me on track, like Tucker said, with all these things, and especially the really deep emotions, because I tend to avoid that. I just put up a barrier, and I don't delve into it until after a lot of time has passed. But I couldn't really do that with my book. I had to go right in and jump into the deep end, like Tucker said, and get it done and do it right. And they steered me all the way. So yes, they really care. They consider my words and the story I'm trying to convey, and always offer constructive advice. And through them, I have learned so much and become a far better writer. I never would have finished my first book. Certainly wouldn't have had the courage to write my second. And the one I've started now is not based on fact. It is fiction. And involves a young reporter. I've never really been a reporter, not a real one. And she's kind of bored with her job as an editor for the society pages of a local newspaper. But she wants to be a crack investigative reporter. And so just by chance, she stumbles upon a murder, what turns out to be a murder that jumpstarts her career and sets her in that right direction. And I'm going to have to put a lot of faith in them with this, because I was trying to steer it toward environmental abuse, but the characters are telling me that's not what they want to do. With the time period, which was the 70s, they want it to be about sex and drugs. And so when I started this, I was making my little synopsis and realized I had two books going. One was environment, one was sex and drugs. And then now they keep saying, I want to do this one. This will be much more fun. And so, I trust them to help me get through this. And I may or may not always agree with them, but I trust their opinions. And so I listen always.
Okay. All right. I want to, So, BB, what's your take on this question?
I was just going to add to Devro's comment that sometimes our characters do kind of take over, and every once in a while I'll text one of them in the middle of the night and say, "Oh my God, my characters are doing da 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 da. That's not what I wanted them to do." But the reason I stick with the group, the reason what I'm getting out of it is first of all, accountability. Every 2 weeks, I've got to have something prepared, something good for these folks to look at. And you just have to be accountable, which is, hard for people, all of us that have lives and responsibilities, but also the honesty and the respect in the group. When you first join the group, everybody's a little on tiptoes, a little not sure how far they can push each other and what people's limits are. And We've been together long enough, I think, that we're tough on each other. We don't have to tiptoe around each other. We can be tough. It's a really talented, amazing group of writers, and they know what they're talking about. We don't have to spend a lot of time, although we can, wander off on where a comma goes occasionally, but we don't spend a lot of time on that kind of thing. But we've known each other long enough, and we've gone through a lot together that we can look at somebody and say, you can do better than that. That's not your best work. I know what you can do, and you can do better than that, or I don't like where this is going, or I don't think you're on the right track here, and we can learn from each other. So I really appreciate the honesty and the level of honesty that we can have with each other.
Okay, here's where me as the host, I'm going to take a little side note here because I wanted to build on that. Thank you, BB, because one of the reasons I'm doing this particular podcast with you guys is because I wouldn't hear from you, but also to explore the idea of not creativity and collaboration, because we're not collaborating, but the fact that creativity is not a lone process. You need other people involved in it. And that's what this group does. And Deborah mentioned she had been in the group 10 years. We actually started in 2011. And then I was in it for a few years, and then I was doing graduate studies. So I and had some other personal stuff. And then I came back in 2015. And so she came in when I was gone, I think, and that's how I met her. And we've had that's going on 14 years. So that's a pretty healthy time that we've had. And some people came around COVID time or a little before. So as BB mentioned, we've developed a relationship. We developed trust and respect and accountability and all those kinds of things. And the fact that we trust each other, that to me, there's no agenda, and there's no competition at all in the group. We're all trying to get better and to help each other get better. And that's what is awesome. And I wish that for every creative person, that they can find that. Okay. So, we have a particular process in our group. So I'm going to ask a couple people to talk about, how they see our process. Tucker.
Well, the process runs the whole gamut, I think, from where the comma goes, which I hate commas. I'll just say that right out. Which commas never existed, but they do. So you have to put them in the right spot, or your sentence doesn't work. And we do that, but we don't talk about it a whole lot because that goes back digitally to the individual. When we're in the group, we talk more about motives of characters, large plot issues, structure, a lot of structure conversations. I think it was BB who said we're tough on each other and we trust each other to be tough on each other. And I think that's the biggest part of the process. We're hard readers. We take what's on the page seriously, and we want each person's story to convey well what that person is trying to get at, rather than revoice everything and put it in our own voices. One of the things I really appreciate is when somebody says show, don't tell. And then over in the margin, instead of just show, don't tell, because if I could have done that the first time, I would have done that the first time. Somebody sticks over on the sideline and says, maybe it's like this. And you go, oh, yes, duh, or changes a word. And we trust each other to just ink it up. I always hated red ink. I used to be a teacher long time ago, and I would make marks in blue or purple or whatever. So I hated red ink. I love red ink now, guys. I love it when my stuff gets marked up and I get to see what somebody else thinks, about what I'm writing. But that's the process generally. The overarching is we take it seriously and we try to make it better and keep it in that writer's voice. And that's a hard place to be as an editor.
Yeah, I appreciate that because we do have to respect the voice, the work, the viewpoint, and the mission, what they're really trying to accomplish in the work, as opposed to what I think they ought to accomplish. Cynthia, how do you see our process?
Well, I literally, my answer was exactly what do we do in this group?
Right. Mm-hmm.
For people to understand it, which is, we have around 10 pages. We're not supposed to go over 10 because it gets oppressive if everyone decides 1 month to write. So we try to limit it to 10 pages. We send it over the internet and we have a deadline of Saturday night. And then we have up till that next meeting on Thursday to read everyone's work. And as Tucker said, to try to help each other. And I believe that what makes this group work is that everyone brings their own gifts of editing into the process. So some people were English majors or English teachers, and they just know what the structure should look like, where the commas go, where the periods go, where the, em dashes should go. Other people are able to get a grasp of what you're trying to say that you're not saying. And as Tucker said, not rewriting for us, but saying, is this what you really meant George to do? And you're like, George is not what? So it's just really heightens our work. And so we understand exactly what we're trying to do and what we're trying not to do. We get to get called out on weird things. And that's good. So an editor one day doesn't say, what are you trying to do? Like, I don't know, because we've already been called out on it. Yeah. And I appreciate that the group understands each other enough to know I think that they understand what we're trying to say, how we want our characters perceived, and what our story's really about, when sometimes we actually don't know. So, yeah.
Yes, I love that. Okay. So yes, as Cynthia said, we have a certain process, and we have had this same process more or less really since we started. And that's just the way it works. And what you'll notice is what we don't do. And as they mentioned, we don't sit there and do line editing in the meeting because that could take about 12 years to do. And it's and I personally, I always tell people, I teach commas for a living. So I don't need somebody to tell me what to do with the commas. I'm not worried about the commas. It's the, do you even care about these people? Kinds of attitudes in the story. Okay. So the question then I ask is, compared to what we do, have any of you been in others writer group with different processes, and how do you compare or not what we do to them? So Devereaux.
Yeah. To be fair, I only attended 2 meetings in one other group, and their process was to focus on one author only during each 1-hour session. Yeah. And so what they did, the author read aloud their 5-10 pages of their story. We didn't get to see it beforehand. And then after they read it, we conducted on-the-spot verbal reviews, and with no opportunity to give the subject matter any real thought. And for me, that was just kind of impossible because I couldn't, I didn't have an opportunity to consider the author's context. I couldn't give any sort of an in-depth review, and neither could anyone else. But they seem to be okay with that. They are still meeting because I still, years later, I still get the monthly email saying, this is when our meeting is. And I just can't believe they're still together. But they didn't get any productive feedback, and they didn't get anything really serious. And So I just, as I said, I quit going after 2 meetings. I just thought, well, maybe the next one will be better and different. And it wasn't. So that was it. And compared to what we do, it's just like night and day.
Yeah. Yeah. Some groups may just do it for social reasons or for a kind of group therapy. And that's why alcohol is involved.
Yeah, used to be one in my neighborhood that met at the local pub. And I thought, well, they're not going to get anything done, but they're probably going to have a good time.
Yeah.
It's more social than seriously getting to the publishing stage. Rachel, what about your experience in this area?
Well, first of all, when I was younger, I did do an MFA program. So I did go through workshop experience and also as an undergraduate, that was for poetry though. And the group that I'm currently in also with the Chattanooga, Writers Guild is a poetry group. I do that also. And because of the nature of poetry, of it being shorter, we don't send things out ahead. We make copies of our poem and give it to everybody. It's first read in the writer's voice and then someone else reads it and then we discuss it. And that works okay for a poem. So I would never go back to a group like Devereaux expressed. They do things, if we did that for fiction. I don't have time for that. And yeah, I can get my therapy somewhere else. So I'm very thankful for the way that we do things.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't, the oral doesn't work for one thing, because, there may, what it looks like on the page and how people read it are two different things. Mm-hmm. Moving on to my next question, and we've addressed this a little bit, but here I want you to get really particular, if possible, about a specific way in one of your projects. And I'm talking about an example that, if possible, that there was help, advice, direction that the group or an individual in the group gave, and you said, that's it. Wow. Or, that kind of thing in the project. Rachel, I'll return to you here. Has that happened to you in the group?
It has, but we have logged so many miles together that I'm not sure if I can, exactly state one time where that's happened, because it happens all the time. Right now I'm in a first draft. So I give myself latitude to just keep chasing the story, knowing that I'm going to have to go back and clean up point of view and stuff. But it's really helpful for me to get those comments about the larger stuff. Well, that they like hearing from this character's voice, or that I can't tell who is thinking this. And on my master copy, I note those bigger things so that when I get to my second draft, sometimes I can fix it in the moment, in the chapter right then. And I do a lot of fixing right after we've talked, but it's usually about smaller considerations. The bigger stuff that I haven't figured out yet, I'll make myself a note on my master copy to revisit that idea and figure out, how to shape it best. So yeah, but just to how things land when I'm not in my, outside my own head, where I was thinking I was doing one thing. And if I find out what's not clear, what's confusing, what's not believable, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Bibi?
Absolutely. My story is literally a young man's journey across France, but it's also his journey through growing up through life. And so at some point, several members, Devereaux, Teresa, I think Tucker even mentioned it once, that I should look at something called The Hero's Journey, by Campbell and Vogler. And I had not ever seen that. In my background, I taught science, so I'd never seen that, and I looked at it, and it took my series of happy little adventures and gave me a framework to build and to escalate and to understand how to move the story forward in an engaging way. So the hero's journey suggestion was absolutely fabulous for me. It really gave me structure. And then Tucker, bless his heart, is always chewing on me for make it gritty, make it gritty. It needs more blood and guts. You know, this is too soft. It's too easy. And I really resisted that because I didn't think it was the story I was writing. But those things stick in your head, and you know, late at night you're writing, you're like, oh yeah, he's right. This needs to be a little harsher. This is about war. You know, there should be some blood sometimes. And so, you know, several times they've given me suggestions, and eventually I managed to listen and you know, learn from it. So yeah, absolutely. They've given me a lot of suggestions that have really improved my story.
Yeah, and you make a good point there, is that sometimes when we hear this input, and I won't call it criticism, just as feedback, it's but it has to simmer. It has to simmer. Can't. It's not gonna immediately go, well, yeah, I fixed it. Yeah. So, and I have noticed the changes in your story since you went to the framework. Yeah. Deborah.
Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time, as everyone has said. But specifically in my last book, The Unbroken Circle, my protagonist, Gertie, she had a beau, Henry, and I wanted to show her indecision about her feelings for him, and which began when she had just experienced had a very traumatic experience, and so she had a lot on her plate emotionally. And so her comments, the way I wrote it, her comments to him were often very prickly. And to me, her dialogue felt natural considering what she was going through. But every time I did that, the ladies in the group in particular, not so much Tucker, but they objected to that. They insisted that Gertie be nicer to Henry. And in the long run, they were right, because her ambiguity made more of an impact once she made her decision about the relationship, and it kept Henry and my reader guessing. I mean, that was only a minor part of the story, but it was important to Gertie's character arc. And so when she finally stepped up and said, you know, this is how it's going to be or not going to be, then, you know, it's kind of like, wow, it made a much bigger impact, and it was a bigger deal, and it improved the story. So that's just, you know, that is one example, but it happens constantly when they set me straight on something.
Yeah. Well, we just don't see these things the same way. So, you know, it's when you're in the middle of it, you know. Cynthia, what about you? Oh, you're muted.
You're right.
Okay. Good. Because I was rambling at that point, moaning and groaning. The way the group has helped me is I had started my novel in the past, and I was, you know, we were fine there. Because I think that when I when I have to send out the 50 pages, that was a strong way to start. But then I feel like they convinced me to start the novel in the present with an action, like boom. So I changed the format of the novel based on the suggestions of the group, and they said it worked better. Hope I don't do another revision, but right now it's starting at a different place because the group, you know, just the feedback from the group and just their involvement in the characters has really helped me to see them better as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Beginnings are hard. I'll leave it at that. Tucker, something specific for you.
Yeah, it just happened. And I've been hearing it over and over and over again that my protagonist, Jenny's motivations for initiating sexual contact with Curtis, one of the other characters, was too one note. And that I needed to give her some other reasons rather than just the clock is ticking. And I fought it and fought it and fought it and fought it literally for years. And Lisa, who's not here, so I can talk about her, said something, I think first part of January. And I went, oh. And for some reason, that's when the penny dropped. Finally, okay, there it is. The elevator went to the top. And I rewrote that section, and it wouldn't let me go any further ahead. That was where the hamster wheel was running. And I finally got it on the page, and now I can move on with the rewrite, because that's literally in the first chapter. So it's a lot of I think we do a lot on the front load of these novels, and that's really helped the rest of it and helped the way I think about the rest of the rewrite. So,
Okay, Teresa.
Yeah, this group has helped me in so many ways. I said that this is a novel based on truth, and I get caught up in that a lot. I get caught up in remembering that these two main characters are my grandparents, and they are very good at reminding me I'm writing a novel, and that I can write in different feelings and different things, and just reminding me that I can change them up just a little bit if I want to, and that I can have them in different situations if I need to. And that's been very, very helpful to me. I think sometimes as the author, it's really easy to have tunnel vision and try to write it a certain way. And this group makes you branch out and see them in different ways. And that's been very helpful to me. And you asked for a specific scenario. Mine, it just happened recently when I set out my first chapter, and every single person thought it was the end chapter. And I never really thought about it that way. So it may really make me rethink the beginning and the end again. They're going to stay the same, but it may be that they flip because I now can see it that way because of this group.
Yes, that's what I thought. I put on it. Great ending.
Yeah, everybody did.
Oh, okay. So I wasn't alone. All right. Thank you so much for that. You guys are giving such great feedback. And I hope this is helpful to listeners. Number one, that they get in a group. And number two, that they understand the process and the frustrations that we go through so much more. Now, I'm going to bring up something a little touchy. And I'll state my case here, and then I'll get Deborah's thought on this. But because I know she's probably experienced this more than anyone else, because she's been in the group longer with, and that's just an observation. We had a lot of folks visit us, and let's just say it didn't work out for them to be in the group, and they decided this isn't for me. I have some interesting observations on that from the past, even before, way back in the past. But what do you think about why this group doesn't work out for maybe some other people, or that makes it so unique that they're not ready for it? What do you think, Deborah?
Well, I can only speak from my own perspective, but things sometimes is they find that their schedules are too busy, or because we meet in the afternoon, that doesn't work for them so well. And others, as we've already mentioned, just kind of want a social, to meet socially and to be stroked and be told how great their work is. They're not really working to improve their writing. But because we're honest in our assessments, they're not really prepared for that. And so, they don't like it. And for others, I think it's also a commitment to a group.
Yeah.
It is, because, it isn't just about the individual. Every writer who submits their writing is required to read each other's writing too and give feedback. And that takes time. I've heard some people say that they just didn't have the time. We've got too many people. I just don't have the time for all that. And and it's just not for everyone to commit to a group like that. They find it easier to go on the internet, I guess, and just find someone to read their work and give some feedback and not have to worry about other people, people other than themselves. But what I have found that, while working together to improve each other's writing skills, we raise each other up. And we've become closer to one another as we become better writers. We celebrate each other's successes and offer mutual support. And you don't get that when you're just working alone.
Right. Very good. That's so incredibly true. We just hold each other up so many ways. Tucker, did you want to add something to that?
Well, yeah, I was thinking this as I was listening to everybody talk all the way through this. I had the real pleasure of sitting in on Tom Jinks's class that he offers through Narrative Magazine. Mm-hmm. Tom Jinks was a pretty high-powered editor. And the 13 of us went through that together. We talked about each other's writing. It was a very serious 4-day ordeal. But the point I want to make here is it was no better in terms of the responses that I got from the group, from that Tom Jinks group, as this group gives me. And this is a supportive atmosphere, a place where I can actually let things out. The Tom Jinks group, they were great. They were right on it. It felt so much like this group. And we even talked about starting a group among us, but that never really happened because we didn't have that long-term commitment and care. So this group is really singular in that. And I think groups can be very supportive and strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that some of the folks that didn't stick around with us, I think they didn't give us a chance. But I also think some of them came in, like Deborah said, they wanted strokes. They wanted to be told, like their family told them it was good. They wanted us to tell them it was good, and we did not have the same whatever connection to just say, I understand what you're getting at here. This is good. We didn't understand what they were even trying to do. So, that was a thing. Okay. I'm going to pose a question that one of the members, Tucker, posed in a group chat. And after that, I am going to, if you, for sake of time, if you have anything else you want to say at the end, I'll let you do that. If you've already said what you want to say, we'll just, close. But, Tucker's question was, let me see if I can get this right. I'm having a really difficult time focusing on the rewrite. My little hamster wheel keeps spinning. What's the point? What's the point? Is this something that happens to you too? How do you counteract the noise in your head? End quote. End of the question. So, Tucker, what you might want to give us some context on that.
Sure. It was just, I'm getting over it now. There was just such a cloud of news smoke. I dare I say political news smoke.
Okay. So,
yeah, that was
outside world stuff.
Yes. The outside world was crashing in on my little brain, and I was going, well, this doesn't make any sense. This is stupid. Why am I doing this? Who cares?
Yeah.
These are little fictitious people. I can stomp them like a bug, and why shouldn't I? Which I must say, we do kill a lot of people in our group.
Or kill the dog. Kill the dog.
So I was thinking I could just stomp on them and kill them now. They're my creation. I can tear it to ribbons and throw it away because it doesn't matter. And I've slowed that down, and now they matter again, and I can do the writing. But the little hamster wheel was just squeaking away out there, and I couldn't get it shut off. So
yeah. So you're speaking of not just the writing and the project, but the existential angst.
Zach.
Yes, and I understand that. I went through a bit of that last year, and it was I have not been particularly productive. Cynthia, did you have anything to say about Tucker's question?
Yeah. So when he wrote that, I think we're really good friends, and with all good friends, meaning all of y'all, at some point you walk on the same road. Mm-hmm. And so I was on the road he was on. And I was like, what am I doing in this room when horrible things are happening outside of it? And so I could not. So I'm glad that Tucker's back in the groove. But here's what I want to suggest to people who are listening, because these are things that I do, and they're my 3 R's, which are to rest, read, and research. And the resting means just give yourself a break and do something else. And so I mean, it's happened enough. I don't know if you can see, but I have over there a music stand and a sewing machine. It's right over there. And in the back of me, so all of this is in my office. And when I get in this space, I go back to creating something else. So I also make quilts. So I'll start on a quilt. I got into puzzling from one of my daughter-in-laws, and I'll start working. So I bought a puzzle table. I literally went to Amazon this time and got a nice puzzle table, and I work on a puzzle, and I walk. And so those are things to do to rest. And then just taking this time to read spec books, so books that you are going to have to list when you write your query and your synopsis. This is a good time to read those books to say what books are most like what I'm doing, working on. I take this time to read craft books. If I really want to think about writing at all, then I'll read a craft book. And just reading other novels, reading other people's work, and just stepping away as much as I can until it's time to, I feel like I can write again. But I think it's important for, to know that we're not one dimensional. A lot of other writer friends, like, they go fishing. They're into photography. They, just don't feel guilty about saying, I can't. And then just go do something to get your mind off of it until the creative muse comes back and say, how about, what if, like, yes. And then you can go back to your typewriter.
Yeah.
Or computer. Whoops. Typewriter.
It's not like we delivered $1 million contracts with advances or something. Teresa, do you have some advice about the hamster?
Well, I just think Cynthia said it all. I go and I find something else to do. I create quilts. I have 14 sewing machines I like to work on. I break them down. I build them up. I get my mind on other things. I have a book going on my headphones all the time. I try really hard to keep a puzzle going, just like Cynthia. I think we are the same person. But you just have to get your mind somewhere else, and it will eventually find its way. I keep a notebook in my pocket or in my purse with me at all times, just in case a thought comes to me. And that has been very helpful, because I would think of a wonderful line or something in the car, and by the time I get home, it was gone. So I learned to always keep something on me to keep me going and remind myself, of what it was I was thinking about. So that's really all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we've been doing this for about an hour now, and I have really, really, really enjoyed this. I was a little nervous. I don't know why. I've done this for 3 years. I shouldn't be nervous about these podcasts yet. But you guys have been fabulous. I think this will be very helpful for anybody reading it or listening to it. They can read it too, I guess. For their writing, for their creativity, for their use and connection with other creative people. So, just at this point, if you have anything else you'd like to add, I'll give you a chance to do that. You can just use the little chat raise thing, raise your hand thing, and I'll let you go ahead. Rachel.
Barbara, I just want to thank you personally for your attention to this group that you started when you have a full-time career that is more than a 40-hour week, and yet you kindly attend to our submissions, though you're in absentia from our group at the moment. We look forward to you joining us again, but I just want to thank you for your generosity in giving us feedback on our work, even though your life is so crazy busy, and for giving this group life. Yeah.
Well, as far as that can, I need to, of course, give homage to, here's the gap. My age is catching up with me. The gentleman who was in her group, Devereaux, Bruce Garn, yes. I'm so sorry. He really kept it going when I had to step back for a while, when at that time in my life, and he kept it going and kept it real. And and he and I started it together back then. We met at a Chattanooga Writers Guild thing, and at the time they were having conferences, and I had one down at the college in Dalton State, and that's where I met him, and we got started then. And he was just a fabulous person and writer, and I miss him so much. And so I enjoy reading your stuff. That's, I sometimes don't think I have much to add because you guys are so good. It's like, but one of these days I'll start sending you some stuff of my own. So thank you, Rachel. Did anybody else want to add? You want to add something, Deborah?
Yeah, I was going to say, besides thank you, I've said so many times, I don't know how Barbara has time to do everything that she does, have a podcast and read our work too. But the question that you posed was, how does the help that I get in this group, what does it mean to me? And I wanted to say that I've read many times the statistic that 97% of those who begin writing a book never finish it. And for me, this group has meant the difference between starting a book and finishing it. And so, I've started and finished 2. And so I expect that I'm going to somehow finish 3. And what I also wanted to say is that because of this group, every one of us we're all finishing a book. Or have published a book or more than one book. And that's because of the support and caring that, we all get from our little writing group.
Mm-hmm. If 90, that other 97% finished, there'd be an awful lot of books. Oh my word. Okay. Does anybody else have a thought they'd like to add? I have too many windows open here on my computer, so let me see what I got. Anybody else?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I was just going to say that the question, what does the writing group? It's respite. It's escapism. Oh. The world is not a very nice place right now. And for 2 hours every 2 weeks, the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of us get to in a room with like-minded people who care about the things that we care about, who love words and sentences and characters. And we get to live in our little imaginary worlds and talk to each other about our little imaginary worlds and escape for a couple of hours with people that care about the things we care about. And that's important to me right now.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, that is, the world's not a friendly place to creatives either. So I'm sure that went in as well as other kinds of things. Okay. Well, I want to thank these folks who have joined me today and to talk about what we've been involved in for the last many years and their own projects and their own writing and the process. And I hope that this is helpful for listeners. I hope you will find your own group. We would love to be able to accommodate everyone, but that'd be a little hard. So we thank you for listening today and have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
Mm-hmm.
This is fun. Thanks.
If you liked that episode, and I was very happy with how it turned out, I do hope that you will listen in to many of my other episodes that you can find on this podcast. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.